Alright, I'm going to compare the original Hellcat here today to this Taurus GX4. I just wrapped up comparing the Hellcat to the P365. If you'd like to see that, I'll put a link in the description so you can go check that out. But I'm real excited to do this today. So far, I really like this Hellcat in the class of micro 9mm here. But so far, everything I've pitted against, I'm coming out, for me, personal choice, I like the Taurus GX4 the most. It's got a lot of really good features about it. We'll go over some here in this video. Having reviewed this Hellcat now, and like I said, just compared it to the P365 as well, I'm thinking the Hellcat might be my new top pick. I don't know though, so I'm going to compare these two today and find out once and for all. So for starters, the GX4 comes with two flush fit 11 round mags. Hellcat comes with a 11 rounder as well. John says that this came with the pinky extension and we're not seeing a flush fit base or anything in the box, so maybe they did come with it, maybe they didn't, or maybe some do, maybe some don't, depending on when you bought it. But at least for us today on this one, the 11 rounder has this pinky extension, and then it also comes with a 13 round mag, which, as you can see, pretty much the same length because that 11 rounder has the pinky extension on there. Now you don't get a 13 round with the GX4, however Taurus does have 13 round mags for it, so you can get it for the GX4, which would extend your grip a little bit here. I can tell you right now, it's not much, but the Hellcat does appear to be a little bit larger. Yeah, it must just be the collar difference and whatnot. Like I said, that's sticking out there because of that pinky extension. We're lined up on the back there, we're lined up on the front, so I guess it's pretty identical there. Just that pinky extension hanging out. And there's from up top, so you can see the width is about the same as well. As you probably just saw there, this Hellcat is optics ready. You can get them not optics ready or optics ready like this one. Same thing with the GX4 here, although this particular example is the non-optics ready version. Tell you right now, the Hellcat automatically has an advantage with the sights here, not only because these are night sights, at least the front is. The front glows in the dark, whereas the Taurus does not. But the pickup on these is much better in my opinion. Real good contrast there with that white stripe and green front. I also really like the sights in general. So 100% giving it to the Hellcat on the sights. Your Taurus here, just your standard white dot up front, so no night sights, and then it's just got blacked out rear, and then you can see how much more difficult that would be to like quickly pick it up on transitions and rapid fire. So definitely the Hellcat on the sights there, which obviously you can change out the sights and whatnot. If you want to spend more money, then you might actually be able to afford to do so on the GX4, because these are usually coming in around $300 around my parts, whereas the Hellcats are still like $500. Slide serrations ever so slightly better on the Taurus than the Hellcat, and they both have about equal resistance on the slide there for racking the slide. Alright, so both have very good grip in my opinion, both very comfortably ergonomically, but the Taurus does have a little more aggressive grip texture, which I like, although the Hellcat is real good as well. But I've always raved about this GX4. Not only in the review video, but in the comparisons I've done thus far, that I really like the grip on this. So even though this thing is short with that 11 round mag in there, and I don't even get my pinky on there, it's just so sure-footed in the hand there, even with that pinky hanging off. I'm always able to hang on to this just as good as guns that I can actually get my pinky on there. It's a little bit wide, you see that big hump in the back there, so I think that has something to do with it. But on top of that, this, like I said, this texturing here is really good. And yeah, it's a more full grip forward and back there, from the front to the back. It's more full, and I wouldn't say it's oversized because I actually have kind of small hands, so typically I always prefer smaller grips. Like guns that come with back straps, I always put the smallest one on, so it's not like, oh, this is too big or anything like that, because I have small hands and it's like perfect. But it does have a little extra width here. Yeah, quite a bit. I know it's not so scientific there, but several millimeters wider back here. So I really think that's what makes the big difference. And then, like I said, it's not too big at all because I have small hands there. So I think guys with bigger hands are going to like the grip on the GX4 more for that reason. But yeah, somehow the combination of the texturing and the overall like pattern and size of the grip, I can hang on to this just as good as these other ones that let me get my pinky on there. So that's always really impressed me about the Taurus. So I can only imagine with the 13 round, which is going to let you get your pinky on there, that the Taurus is probably going to lead the front of the pack for the grip there. At least for me it does. Another area where the Taurus excels is the trigger. So you can see they both have the trigger safety blade there. The Hellcat it's a curved trigger, but it's not got a sharp curve to it. And it depends on who you ask. I personally like flat face, but I don't have any problem with curved at all. I really honestly perform well with both, but I just kind of slight advantage, I guess, to me for the flat, just like overall feel. I don't know that I perform any better with them, but you get the flat face trigger on the Taurus. Of course, you got your safety blade there. Now, when I first started shooting this thing, and you can see this in the original review video, this trigger was like stupid heavy, like I don't know, like 8 or 9 pounds if I remember correctly. But after 100, 200 rounds, that has smoothed out a lot. And so now it actually has a pretty decently light trigger, like 4.5 pounds if I had to guess. So they both have excellent trigger breaks, very clean and crisp, but the Hellcat is quite a bit heavier there. But again, that's after break-in. I don't know about the Hellcat because it's not mine. But the GX4 started out terribly heavy. But after break-in, 150, 200 rounds, it's nice and light now. So here's the take-up on the GX4, which is also shorter than on the Hellcat. Now for the pull-through, you see absolutely no creep there. Then on the Hellcat, yeah, that's way more take up. And then on the pull through, again, clean, crisp brake. It's just like about 2 pounds heavier. This to me feels like about 4.5, and this feels like about 6.5. So I don't know if these are supposed to be able to look up the specs for both. Both vary wildly depending on reviewer. But I just asked John, and he said that he probably doesn't have more than 100 rounds to this Hellcat, so maybe it would still lighten up some over time as well. I'm not sure. I'd have to research that, whether that's a thing with the Hellcat or not. I mean, I get tons of guns where the trigger, brand new, is pretty much the same it is 500 rounds later. That seems to be the typical scenario. But then every once in a while I get them where they're super heavy right out of the box, and then after 150, 200 they lighten up. So don't know if that Hellcat's going to be one that does that, but if it did, then maybe it'd, you know, be more on par with the GX4 there. But I do not know that information. So as it stands, he said it's got about 100 rounds through it. I've got probably 300 or 400 through my GX4 now, but the Hellcat trigger is definitely heavier for me today by at least 1.5 pounds. And by the way, big thanks to John at Boomstick Revenge for loaning the Hellcat for the review today and for letting us shoot on the range. Go check them out. Then here's the reset on the Hellcat. Alright, and then on the GX4, a little bit shorter on the GX4, not much. But alright, I think that's enough tabletop discussion. Hope I didn't forget anything. I'm going to start out on this target here, 12 yards, see how they each group down there at 12 yards. I will tell you the Hellcat, it's shooting off to the left for me. I tried to adjust it with my sight pusher here, that's for a Glock, and it didn't quite fit, and she's way too stiff to get with my punch and hammer I tried. So unfortunately, Hellcat's a little bit off to the left, but that's not going to be any big issue. I'm going to go up there 10 yards and do some drills, rapid fire, and transitions and whatnot. GX4 I think's good to go, but we'll check them both down here. More what I'm looking for is not how close the bullseye it is, because obviously you can adjust the sights on both, but what I print with each. Which I do believe I'm probably going to print tighter groups with the GX4 because of that lighter trigger. I'm going to go for the red dot on the top with the Hellcat, and then on the bottom dot with the GX4. Alright, so I actually cannot explain this at all. In the review video, the Hellcat was off to the left. In the previous video, comparing it to the P365, it was off to the left for me, although I got some just under bullseye. And this time, I know the up and down string is just for me like jerking the trigger and whatnot, but now she's dead lined up. And the sight didn't move at all. I just checked it. It's in the exact same spot. So I have no explanation for that. And I do not ever tend to pull to the left. I usually pull a little right if I do screw up a shot. So I really have no explanation for that. And then on the GX4, that thing was perfectly zeroed. And I've been wondering about this, and I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second. But we're off to the right with the GX4, and I'm stringing those up and down too. But overall, you can see the group is tighter with the GX4. Like I said, that lighter trigger making it easier. These are honestly pretty horrible groups at 12 yards here, but I'm not one to really sit there and shoot tight groups with pistols. So, I mean, I can shoot them long range sometimes even out to 100 yards if it's a good enough pistol, but not really printing tight groups. But that up and down string is just me, whether I have the blade of the sight here when I pull the trigger, or accidentally went high when I pulled the trigger, or accidentally went low when I pulled the trigger, or if I jerked the trigger and caused it to go up or down. So don't read too much into the results down here at 10 yards as far as accuracy goes, because that's just me. So here's what I was talking about. I was looking at this. I have adjusted these sights in the past because it was shooting off to one side or the other. I don't remember which. Might be a little hard to tell in the light. But I noticed, like, see how far off it is pushed to the right there compared to the left? I was like, man, I don't remember having to push it that far. So I think what has occurred is that sight from shooting it has drifted off to the right on its own. So I guess I'm gonna have to put some Loctite on that. So I'm gonna have to give that little nudge back to the left to bring our point of impact back where it should be. John just brought up a good point. I didn't even think about this, but when I was shooting the Hellcat earlier today, I was using Federal down there at 10 yards, and now I'm using Magtech. I didn't think it would really make much difference at 10 yards, but it's certainly possible. So that might be why I have a shift there in my point of impact, because I was shooting Federal when I was getting all those ones off to the left, and now I'm using Magtech, so maybe that's it. Yeah, I just pushed it over and it was like super easy for me to move it, so that sight has definitely drifted on me. So that's interesting. I never had that happen before on any gun, but I guess John said he's seen where other people were having that issue as well, so that's good to know. But yeah, I have to put like from now on, I'll have to finish this later. I was just trying to get it close enough to wrap up this video, but get some just a little dab of blue Loctite under it. That way it doesn't shift on me again. Just took these two real quick, so now that I moved that sight, so close enough for now. All right, let's try some 25-yard shots here at that half-scale silhouette on the right, and then my 16-inch steel gong in the center here before I walk down about 10 yards and do some little, I don't know, drills, transitions back and forth and whatnot. Alright, so the Hellcat I noticed was going low. I had to basically cover the target with the front sight. That was the issue I had there with those two that missed low. I believe they were low because I aimed higher and then no issues after that. So, I mean, up here on this target at 12 yards, it doesn't seem to really matter, but out there further, it's more like a cover hold because the bullet's going where that front dot is on the sight. Taurus is probably similar, but just not quite as low as the Hellcat. I just had an issue with the Taurus there, which actually John had this issue. He just reviewed my GX4. I don't know, by the time this post had been a few weeks by now. But they had one cough up on them in that video. I don't think it made it in the video, but I remember saying that, like, I think it was just dirty. It's been a while since I cleaned it. It was dry and whatnot. And I still haven't cleaned it. Intended to, but forgot. However, I will say I usually like to run my guns. Like, a lot of times I'll just run them straight out of the box. And then also intentionally just keep running them over and over and over, hundreds of rounds dirty until they start coughing up, just so I basically know the breaking point of the gun. And I'll tell you, a lot of them, they never have an issue with it. You can run them dirty and dry for years and they're still going to run reliably for you. But this GX4 for me, it does not seem to be one of those. Definitely want to keep that guy cleaned up and lubed. And the actual issue, initially I thought it was like a double feed. So I dropped the mag and refed I could see brass like half out of the chamber. Then I went to shoot again, clicked nothing, pulled it out and examined it. So what it actually was the empty case. It failed to extract. And the reason it failed to extract is because the slide did not come back far enough. So definitely getting plenty of recoil down there, which I'm going to comment on later. I'm noticing the recoil is more on the GX4 than the Hellcat, I think. Well, I guess I won't know until I go down there with the Hellcat, but quite a bit of muzzle flip there with the GX4. But anyways, it did not fully extract that shell, so I don't know if it like failed to chuck it out and then went back forward and got stuck, or if it just didn't cycle back all the way, which is why it didn't eject it, which is what I'm leaning towards. I'm not sure, but that's what happened. So we had a empty case from that fire round. It was about 1/3 in the chamber with the slide stuck most of the way open, so that's what occurred there. And I gotta say, this is the third time I've shot the Hellcat now, and I've not had any issues with it at all, so I'm gonna say that the Hellcat's probably a more reliable pistol. I think the Taurus just needs clean, but like I said, I like to test that anyways, and I generally tend to favor pistols that will run real dirty, dry, no lube and whatnot, because you know you can count on them no matter what. So I don't particularly like that about the GX4 now. We had one hang up on the very first mag when it was brand new, and then after that it has been fine for a few hundred rounds. But like I said, last time John had it out here, it coughed up on him once and it just did it to me there. So she definitely needs to be cleaned and lubed, but I still don't like the fact that that occurred, because that's one of my determining factors whether I carry a pistol or not, is does it still run reliably, you know, when it's dry and dirty. Well, that was horrible. I reviewed the footage, so it seems like every one of those that went low, but I noticed sometimes with that heavy trigger it's causing me to pull some shots. But also, like I said a few minutes ago, it seems like that's a cover hold. I was holding kind of 6 o'clock on those because it's what I tend to do, because it's kind of what I'm used to. Most pistols, you know, 6 o'clock hold, the bullet goes a little higher than the front sight. But on this guy, the bullet's pretty much going where that front dot is, so that played into it a little bit. But I mean, as you can see in the footage there, I just reviewed it myself. Every shot went under, so it's not like they were going left, right, anything like that. It was just they were low, so basically I needed to aim higher. If not for that, then the hit ratio would have been about the same as the Taurus, I believe. But some of those are from coming off the lighter trigger of this Taurus here and then stepping up 2 pounds to go to that Hellcat. Like I said, I don't know what they were rated from the factory or whatever, but for me today, with the Taurus being broken in, and he said that only had about 100 rounds through it, the Taurus is about 2 pounds lighter, so that's definitely somewhat of a contributing factor as well. Alright, now comes the time where half of you are going to love me for my decision and half of you are going to hate me for my decision. But let's talk about the positive each had. So again, the Hellcat here definitely has the better sights. Like I said, just like them overall better in general. You got much higher contrast, they pick up real well. Plus, the front actually glows, so you have a proper night sight. So it's kind of 2 wins there for the Hellcat, because I think they're better for daytime shooting because they pick up quick, and then they're also better for, you know, nighttime if you have to use it self-defense scenario or whatever. So it's kind of like 2 wins in 1 there with the Hellcat. It definitely has way better sights. Oh, by the way, before I forget, the Taurus did have a little more muzzle flip, but it wasn't like uncontrollably so. Both pretty stout recoil for what they are, but I did notice a tad more muzzle flip with the Taurus. I think, let's say, is it lighter? Not really, but yeah, a little bit more muzzle flip on this guy. That could also be due to that shorter grip, because remember, my pinky's on there. Now I said I don't have any issue hanging on to it, even though my pinky's hanging off there with the 11 rounders, which again you can get the 13 rounders. But that probably is contributing to that extra muzzle flip. So I think if you had equal length mags in here, that's a non-factor. So I'm not going to make that a deduction for the Taurus. However, I will make it a deduction that you have to buy the 13 round mag separately for the Taurus, whereas you do not have to do that on the Hellcat. Again, whether the optic's ready or not, they both have those options, so that doesn't really matter. Taurus definitely has a better trigger. Like I said, well, even if the weight was the same, so even if this did lighten up, which I don't know that it will, if you put a few more 100 rounds in it, the Taurus still had a shorter take up and a shorter reset, so that would still give the win to the Taurus on the trigger there. But especially since it's coming in 1.5 to 2 pounds lighter for me today, hands down better trigger on the Taurus there. Also the grips, like I said, they both have great grips, and somebody else might not notice the difference one over the other, or if you got your pinky on both, instead of hanging off like on the GX4, you might not really notice any difference. But I'm going to say I still really prefer the grip on the Taurus. Like I said, it gives you a fuller grip, and the texturing's a little more aggressive. So for me, that's a win on the Taurus as well with the grip there. I guess another little feature I should mention is the Taurus comes with a different back strap, so you can change that a little too to like personalize to your hands. I don't see that on the Hellcat. It's not interchangeable. I mean, maybe some of the newer ones are, I don't really know, but Taurus has that advantage there too. Not a huge advantage, but I don't know whether or not to hold missing those targets down there against the Hellcat or not. Like I said, it's slightly different hold aiming, so that could have been why, because I need to aim a little higher. Could also be the heavier trigger, although I will say in the review video of this thing, again linked in the description, that I actually shot it really well and I didn't do none of that crap. But in that video I was only getting familiar with that gun, so I probably had the right hold and whatnot and was more used to the trigger compared to here. In the comparison, we're going back and forth, so every time you switch it's like kind of starting over. I guess it's different, so I don't know whether or not missing those should be held against it. Like I said, I actually shot it really well in the review video, much better than I did out here today. So I was gonna say, I think this one comes down to personal preference, but I mean, they pretty much always do. You almost have an equal amount of, wins one over the other. Like I said, Hellcat, better sights. I think the GX4 has better grips though. GX4 has better trigger. Hellcat comes with a 13 round mag. The GX4 does not. Again, the sights are not only better in general, I believe, but also glow in the dark. So you got night sights there too, whereas you don't with the Taurus. It's kind of like even back and forth on the features. This has some pros and cons. This has some pros and cons. I think overall for me, I still give just a slight nod to the GX4.
10,000 people just unsubscribed.
And I guess that's another thing to consider is the price too. You save a lot of money with the GX4. However, with that reliability thing we were talking about there, that does make me a little hesitant. And some of you would absolutely be like, well, automatically, your Hellcat wins there because it's more reliable, which I'd probably agree with that. But like as far as like overall shooting experience and whatnot, I'm giving a slight nod for me in my hands to the GX4 there. Also, this is an example of one. I'm sure you can get 1,000 guys on here in the comments section that are going to say their Taurus has run absolutely flawless since day one. They got 1,000 rounds through it, never an issue. And 99% of the time that's going to be true as well. So it's hard to kind of like, reliability off of an example of one, but we did have that issue here today. Which, as I said, I'm pretty confident just because this thing's dirty, grimy, and dry and needs cleaned and lubed, but I still don't like the fact that it occurred, because that is one of my tests I like to do on my own carry guns. I want to know it's going to get me through no matter what, but again, this is an example of one. So I think the reliability there is certainly something that needs to be considered, but I think for me, I would prefer, personally, the Taurus, and I would just want to go get some better night sights for this thing and call it a day. And for me, I would be happier with that, as long as it's going to be reliable for me, which, like I said, I'm 100% confident if it was freshly cleaned and lubed, it would be, but it is what it is. I would honestly feel comfortable calling it a tie. I mean, they both do the same job just about as good as one another. I can't really tell you why, just feel, I guess, but overall for me, I would still slight nod to the GX4. I would just definitely like to change those sights out. Oh, and get that 13 round mag. But again, with the money you save over the Hellcat, you can do that. But so let the hate comments roll in. If you guys want to get yourself any products you see me use in my videos, like shooting bag, earmuffs, safety glasses, target stand, paper targets, steel targets, and more, links in the description for all of that. Again, link in the description to the original review video of all three of these. Also link in the description, Hellcat versus P365, if you'd like to see that. Thanks for stopping by to check this one out today, guys, and I hope to catch you on the next one.